Hey friends, it's Corey from Hey Let's Make Stuff. In today's video, we are crafting 3 projects for the holidays. Each of these projects is perfect for gift giving, and because I know we are all struggling with money these days, not very expensive to make. First up, we have a pair of buffalo plaid earrings. These use faux leather and iron-on, and they're actually super easy to make. Second, we're crafting treat boxes. So if you also love to bake and you want to give cookies, you can craft one of these cute little boxes to deliver your cookies in and make your gift extra special. Finally, we are crafting this cute little mug. It's great for coffee or tea drinkers. It's super easy to make. It's a great project for beginners, and you can stuff it full of whatever you'd like. A little candy, a little hot chocolate, a candy cane. Perfect for the holidays. All right, let's get crafting. Let's start with making these cute buffalo plaid earrings. These are perfect for your girlfriends, your sisters, maybe that women's group at church. You can make a lot of them with a single piece of leather, so let's go ahead and get started. For this project, you can use any Cricut you have. I'm using a Cricut Explorer 3, but you can also use a Cricut Maker or even Cricut Joy. It can cut this type of leather. You're also going to need a green cutting mat as well as some black iron-on vinyl. Then you're going to want to pick some leather. So let's talk about the leather for just a second. So this is faux leather. It's basically a polyester plastic product, but it kind of has a feel like leather. This is Cricut suede, which has a bit of a brushed, softer finish than their other leather, but you can use their other leather. When you're looking for a product like this, you want to look for something that's called PU leather. You can find it on Amazon. Of course, you can always buy the Cricut brand. I really suggest getting something with a flat finish. A lot of the PU leathers and the faux leathers have a pebbled finish, and while you can use it, it does look a little melty when you add the heat to it. It's a plastic product, it melts under heat, and it just doesn't keep that nice pebbled finish. So if you're going to do that, I would really pick something that has a smooth finish. Then you're going to need a heating element. So I have my Easy Press Mini. If you don't have one of these, you should try and get one. It is such a handy little guy. I use it all the time on all sorts of projects, even big projects. You can also use a mini iron or a regular iron. You can use a larger heat press, though it gets a little tricky because this is a pretty quick press. And so you may have to play around with your settings on your bigger heat press. And then you're going to want some sort of heating mat like this if you're using a smaller press. Then you're also going to need a pair of flat jewelry pliers, as well as 2 fish hook earring findings. And then having a pair of scissors is handy as well. Let's hop over to Cricut Design Space and make our file. I've uploaded my file to Cricut Design Space. It's a free file I designed for you. I've linked it in the description so you can go ahead and grab it. If you want, you can change the size or you can change the colors, but this is exactly how I want to make it, so I'm going to go ahead and click Make It in the upper right here. Then Cricut Design Space will ask you how you want to load your materials. For this, I'm choosing On Mat for both my layers, and then you'll see your project on your 2 mats. So for this, I'm going to actually move this over just a little bit because I actually like to cut these 2 pieces separately with scissors so that I can weed them a little bit more easily. And then I also like to separate these just a hair because this little bit in the center can get tricky sometimes when cutting. Go back to your first mat and click Continue. And Cricut Design Space will connect to your Cricut. From here, you'll set your base material for this first layer. We're choosing Everyday Iron-On. And then you'll want to make sure that your fine point blade is loaded in your machine. If you haven't cut iron-on vinyl before, it's very easy. It's got 2 sides. We've got a shiny side and a less shiny side, and that shiny side goes down on the mat. You want to put it in the top left corner, unless you've moved it for some reason in Cricut Design Space. And if you need to, you can use a brayer to help get better adhesion. This is a fairly new mat, so it's sticking very nicely, but you can use that brayer or your hands to press it down because the last thing you want is it coming up in your machine. Now I'm going to go ahead and insert my mat into my machine, and my Cricut will cut my project. All right, my Cricut has cut my project, and one of the easiest ways to remove a material, almost any material, from your mat is to turn it over and pull the mat away from your material, just like this. That helps keep your material from curling. Now, like I said, I like to actually trim these so they're separate here. So I'm going to cut out my 2 earrings like this. I'll put this in my scrap bin. And then I'm cutting between the 2 here. Now before we leave these, let's cut that leather. I have a whole blog post on cutting different types of leather with tips and tricks. I'll go ahead and link that in the description, but cutting this sort of paper thin leather is actually really easy. So you just want to place it here on your mat face up, like this. Again, you can use a brayer to get better adhesion if you need to. If you're struggling to get this to cut properly, the first thing I would try is replacing your blade. Because this is a bit of a thicker material, you may need to replace your blade. The second thing you might want to do is flip this upside down and put the knife side face down. I haven't found that's necessary for the most part with this sort of Cricut leather, but that might work for you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put this in my machine and my Cricut will cut my leather for me. You can flip this over and peel it away the same way you did the iron-on vinyl, but this material tends to peel up really nicely, so you can just peel it back here, and you can see that our earrings cut beautifully. The next step is to weed the iron-on vinyl. Now this can just be a little bit tricky because the buffalo plaid pattern is a little bit tricky. So what I like to do is I like to sort of peel all around it, and I like to go pretty slowly here. So I'll start in one corner, and then instead of just peeling it straight across, I'll sort of peel around all of the edges here. So I'm sort of carefully working my way around the edge. Like this, and just carefully peeling things up as I go. And that should pull up most of the project. Now you still have this piece in here that you need to weed, so go ahead and grab that block and it will peel up the other pieces along with it, just like that. Again, just be really careful as you're going. So there you go, you can see that that peeled the whole thing. Just go slowly, it's just a little bit of a tricky weeding project, and I don't want you to lose any of those tiny pieces. Now let's add our iron on. I will say that this leather likes to curl a little bit, so there are a couple things that I do. First is right after I've ironed it, I flip it over and I do a quick iron from the back. That does seem to help a little bit. The second thing I do is I have a heavy book or something that the second I iron it on, I shove it underneath the book and let it cool underneath the book. That way it helps it be a little bit flatter. You may still get a little bit of curling. It's just the nature of using a product that's not genuine. But overall, I still think this is a really cute project, even if you do just get a little bit of that curling around the edges. So what you're going to do is carefully line up the iron-on top of the leather, and it should fit perfectly. There we go. And then you're going to hit it with your iron. So I have this set to the second level, which is about 315 degrees in Cricut Easy Press land. So if you have something that's similar, you want to set it to about 315. And it's a pretty quick press. I have not found that you need a full 15 or 30 seconds. 5 seconds or so seems to work. I move it around, and then I'm going to peel it back, and then I'm going to hit it on the other side, and then I'm going to put it under this heavy book to try and prevent some of that curling. So here we go. We're just going to hit it with the little iron. 5 seconds, just like that. And we're going to carefully peel this off because it's hot. Flip it over, hit it a little bit from the back, and then stick it underneath the book, just like that. All right, let's do the other one. So again, just place this right on top. This should fit perfectly. Hit it with the little iron, 5 seconds or so, just like that. Peel it back, flip it, hit it from the back, and put it under something heavy. All right, I'm gonna let these cool, and then we'll come back and add the earring bindings. Before we add our hooks, if you have found that you have not gotten it quite around the edge, especially if you're looking at the back, you could just use a pair of scissors and carefully trim off that extra vinyl. So you can see we have a little bit of curling on our earrings, but overall it's really not too bad. So you can always hit it again with the back of the iron, put it under something flat, and let it sit even longer if you want, and that should help as well. I'm not a jewelry maker, so there may be a better way to do this, and if you have a different method, go for it. If you want to use different earring findings, go for that as well. But I'm going to keep it simple here, and I'm going to start with this piercing tool. And again, you can use a needle. I just like this because it's really easy. So up here toward the top, just in the center of the top there, press down and create a hole on both earrings. This will give you a place to add your hook. Now take your earring hook and your pliers and open up the little loop at the bottom. Bend it open a little bit, and then you can thread the little loop onto the hole you just made, making sure that your earring is facing the correct direction. And then use your pliers to close that loop, just like that. So you can see how quickly you can make these earrings, especially if you're making a bunch. So yeah, but they turned out super cute, very festive for the holidays. You're gonna look great. Let's move on to our second project. Our second project is a treat box, and I love this project because it involves baked goods, and I love baked goods. So if you also like to bake and you like to use your Cricut, this is a great way to give two homemade gifts in one. You've got the box you made yourself and the delicious treats inside. For this project, you're going to want a Cricut Explorer or Cricut Maker. Cricut Joy can technically cut all of these materials, but it's not big enough to make a decent sized box, and nobody wants to get like a quarter of a cookie as a gift. No, you definitely need one of the bigger machines. You're also going to need a green Cricut cutting mat. And then for the base of your box, you're going to want to use something like craft board. So this is Cricut craft board. It's just thicker than cardstock. You can use cardstock, it just won't be quite as sturdy. But if you can get your hands on some of this craft board, I really like it for the bottom of boxes. It's just nice and sturdy. And then you're going to want to pick a fun pattern cardstock for the top of your box. For the window of the box, you're going to need something clear. So you can use cellophane, you can use acetate. I generally like to cut this by hand. For this project, I'm actually using a Cricut mat cover, which I have cleaned because obviously I've handled these a lot. But it works really well. It's like the perfect weight to kind of create a window in a box. So whenever I throw an old mat away, I keep the mat cover and I use it for projects like this. And for the poinsettia, you're going to want some felt. For this project, I'm just using Cricut felt. It cuts beautifully using the fine point blade. I don't have to mess with a rotary blade, but if you did want to use something like a thicker wool felt, you can use the rotary blade on a maker, but I wouldn't suggest cutting it with a fine point blade. So just using this Cricut felt, it's very thin. It's not the most particularly luxurious feeling felt, but since it cuts really well, that's what we're gonna go with. You're also going to need tacky glue for assembling your box. And if you have them, I highly recommend these little wonder clips. So these were originally designed to do binding on quilts, to hold binding together. That's how I used to use them, but they're also really good to have around to clip things that you need to dry with glue. So when we fold our box together, instead of sitting there holding it and waiting for the glue to dry, we're gonna use these little clips. They're great, I will link to them. You're also going to want some sort of folding tool. Yes, you can use your fingers, but I find that very unpleasant. So if you like to do that, you can. But if not, I like this little sort of plastic folding thing. It feels really good in my hands to fold different projects. I've had it for years. I will try and find one and link to something similar. You can also use like a Cricut scraper, that works too, but generally you want something to get those really crisp folds after we score our project. Speaking of scoring, you're going to need a scoring tool. So since I'm using Explorer, I'm using my Cricut scoring stylus. It's basically just a pointed thing here that will drag across the paper and it will create a score line. If you have a Cricut Maker, you may have a scoring wheel. You can totally use that. It's honestly superior to this guy, but it doesn't work at this machine. You can also use the scoring stylus in the Maker if you don't have a wheel. If you don't have a scoring tool, you technically can just fold this by hand. You just want to be really careful and kind of follow the guidelines of how the file looks in Cricut Design Space. And then finally, you want some sort of embellishment for your poinsettia. I got these cute little rhinestones, but I also made this box as well, and I used pearls, super cute. I'm sure you have some sort of bits and baubles around your craft room that'll work. Here we are in Cricut Design Space. These treat boxes are actually files that exist within the Cricut Access library. So if you have Cricut Access, you'll probably be able to get these for free. If you don't, you can buy them a la carte. But I use these files all the time, so if you do decide to buy them, know that you will probably use them quite a bit. I've got two different boxes here, one with a scalloped edge and one with a straight edge. For this project, we're going to be using the straight edge version because I've already made the scalloped version like you saw. I've also added two little gift tags up here in the left so that you can label your box. We're not going to do that with this file, but they are there if you'd like to use them. So for this, I just need to keep one box visible. So I'm going to go ahead and hide these two tags, hide the pink poinsettia, hide one of the boxes here, as well as the pink box here. So that I just have the blue lid, the box bottom, and then our red poinsettia. Click Make It in the upper right. And for this, we're going to choose on matte because we're cutting it on cardstock and felt. And here in the Prepare screen, you'll see the three different layers. You can take a look, make sure everything looks good. You'll notice that on the first two layers, these dotted lines, those are the score lines. So the Cricut scoring tool will go ahead and score on those lines so you can easily fold your box. Then Cricut Design Space will connect to your machine. If you don't have Cricut craft board set in your materials, you can browse all materials over here and search for craft, and then choose craft board. then you want to make sure you have the correct tools in your machine. So I need to put this scoring stylus in my machine. So if I go over here, just put it right in, go and close it. And then I have my fine point blade in there as well. I'll insert this into my machine and the Cricut will score and cut it. And we'll do the same with the cardstock layer, and then we'll come back and we'll do the felt together. All right, my Cricut has cut my first 2 pieces. Now let's cut the felt. If you haven't cut felt before on your Cricut, it's actually really easy, and you may be surprised that a fine point blade does do a really good job with this Cricut felt. I went looking for Cricut felt recently and actually couldn't find it on the Cricut site, so I'm kind of thinking they might have discontinued it, but you can still find it on Amazon and at other retailers, so hopefully it's still around. You may want to stock up for projects like this. It comes in a variety of colors. They're all like sample packs, so if you want a lot of a single color, it's kind of a pain because you gotta buy a lot of sample packs, but anyway, it's great for projects like this. So go ahead and just place it on your mat here. Like with the leather in the last project, if you find that this is not cutting cleanly, go ahead and change your blade. You'll also notice that some of the edges when it's cutting don't look good. But the nice thing is they're actually the parts of the poinsettia that we're not using. They're the little cutouts that go in between the different petals. So it may look a little bit crummy on your board, but hopefully when you peel it off, it will look really good. So let's go ahead and cut this one too. So I actually started cutting this and realized I needed to change my blade. So I've got kind of a messed up bit in this corner, but the other side turned out pretty good. And I don't know if you can see this on video here, but there are some little spots here where it looks like it doesn't look very good. But when I pull this up, the actual cut themselves looks really great. We have all our pieces cut, and I cut a little piece of that Cricut mat protector to be the window for our project. So now we just have to assemble our box. So let's start with the bottom piece. All you have to do is fold along the score lines. And like I said, I like to use this little folder here, which just gives me really crisp, straight lines. So go ahead and fold all of these pieces like this. And then we'll go back and really flatten them out using this folder. You can use a Cricut scraper or whatever, but I just find it works so much better than using my fingers. All right, so I folded in these little flaps. You don't necessarily need to use the folder for those if you don't want. And then all we're gonna do is glue our box together. So to do this, do 2 at a time because I find that it just is a little bit easier. All right, so I just put a little bit of glue here and a little bit of glue here. And then fold like this. And this is where those wonder clips come in really handy. So just clip it like this and clip it like this. So easy. And you're not stuck there waiting for the tacky glue to dry. Here we go, let's do this side. This side. There we go. And do the same using the little wonder clips. Super easy, right? Okay, let's do the other piece. I've actually already started folding this when I realized that I had a little bit of a problem. So this didn't score as well as I was hoping. It still will work, but if you're struggling to get it to fold away from the score, you can always fold it toward the score first and then fold it away from the score. That can help a lot if you just can't get that score line to work very well. All right, and we're gonna glue it together just like we did this box with the 2 flaps. While we're waiting for this to dry, we can add our little plastic window. And I use the very, very fancy technique of putting a piece of round of glue here. This does not have to be fancy. This is not part that somebody's really going to be looking at. See, and then you can glue your plastic in there just like that. And that glue will dry clear, so it actually doesn't look really bad or anything like that. While we're waiting for the tacky glue to dry, let's make our poinsettia. So this is very easy. It has 2 layers and they basically get glued on top of one another. So we've got a little bit of glue here. We can just add this second layer. They don't really line up in any way. You can just stick it on there. And then we're gonna add our rhinestones. I'm gonna use this very large bottle of glue, but if you have something smaller, it might be a little bit easier. This is just a little kind of annoyingly large for this project, but that's okay. This is Aleene's tacky glue. It's my favorite tacky glue. It dries quickly, it dries clear. I just like it a lot. So let's Let's add our last little rhinestone here, and we've created a cute little poinsettia. Okay, our box should be dry by now. Like I said, this stuff dries pretty quickly, so we can take off the wonder clips. If you don't have any wonder clips, I highly recommend them. I use them all the time in my craft room. All right, we'll take them off this box too. Put some glue on my arm because it wouldn't be crafting if you didn't get glue on your arm. Put those in there, and then you can just fit the box lid over your box here. It is a pretty tight fit, so you want to make sure you're going like straight down, but it does fit nicely. And then you can just add your poinsettia by adding a little bit of glue on your lid here and adding it just like that. And now your treat boxes are ready to be filled with all sorts of holiday goodies. Ready for project number 3? Me too, let's go. All right, our third and final project is to make a mug using adhesive vinyl. This is a project that a lot of new Cricut crafters make. It's very easy to do and it's perfect for gift giving. To make this project, you can use your Cricut Explorer, Cricut Maker, or Cricut Joy. Any of them will work. You're also going to need a green Cricut cutting mat and then 3 colors of permanent adhesive vinyl. So I'm using black, red, and teal to kind of go with the theme of this video, but you can use whatever colors you'd like. And then you want one piece of transfer tape. We're going to transfer all 3 colors of our project with the same piece of transfer tape. It just makes it a lot easier. You're obviously going to need a mug, as well as something to clean your mug, like alcohol and some cotton swabs. You can also use a lint roller, but I have found on ceramic and other hard blanks like this that the alcohol does a much better job of getting rid of things like fingerprint oils, so you have better adhesion for your vinyl. You're also going to need a weeding hook, and then something I find helpful is to have a cradle. So this is not necessary. You can just put the mug straight on your desk, or you can build your old cradle, but I really love this cradle. It's from Uniquely Why Not. It has these little plastic bumpers here, so when you go to put your blank, like a mug or a tumbler on here, it stays really sturdy. There's also a ruler. I don't know, I love this little thing. It was well worth the purchase for the number of mugs and tumblers that I make, but there are other options out there, or you can kind of go without, even though I find that a little bit tricky. So here's the file we're going to use. This Cup of Cheer file is free on my blog. I will go ahead and link to it. You can download it and use it yourself. I reworked the file a little bit by changing the size so that it would fit on my mug. I decided that 3 inches tall for the whole thing would be a good size. And then I changed the color of the mug image so that I could see how it would look with my final project. Once you're ready to go, you can click Make It in the upper right. And then I'm choosing On Mat because, again, I'm using scraps. And here you will see all of your mats with all of your images. For this project, we don't need to mirror because we're not using iron-on, so we're okay to make it here. So click Continue, and Cricut Design Space again will connect to your machine. So for the material, choose permanent vinyl. You want to make sure you're using permanent vinyl because you don't want it to come off in the wash. And then when you load your tools and materials, you'll choose the fine point blade. When working with adhesive vinyl, you want the color side up. So the back usually has a grid on it, but the front is the color, and you just want to make sure that that's facing up for your cut. And then you will put this in your machine and your Cricut will cut it. I'm going to go ahead and cut all 3 layers since they're all basically the same. I've cut all 3 pieces of my vinyl and I've trimmed it down the sizes so that they're much smaller. And now we're going to weed. Weeding adhesive vinyl on a project like this is generally pretty easy. It can get a little sticky on larger projects, but projects like this, fairly easy. You can just pick up the corner and then weed it through. Okay, so I've hit a roadblock. I've lost my pea here. So I'm going to go ahead and hold it in my hand as I try and peel the rest of this. There we go. And then I'm going to, this is the center of the pea, so I'm going to go ahead and pick that up and get rid of it. And then I'm going to put my pea back down. I just wanted to be able to show you guys that 1, things always don't go perfect for those of us who do this all the time, and 2, that a lot of mistakes like this are easy to fix. You can just put it back down, making sure that the sticky side is down. It works really well there to fix it. Pick up some of these little pieces. All right, so we have our Cup of Cheer off there. And let's do our hearts. Easy. And then our little mug here. This. And then that little center piece there. We have all 3 pieces of our mug and we're going to now transfer them to the mug itself using transfer tape. So the easiest way I think to get transfer tape off the backing sheet is to use a weeding hook and to just pull it up like this. It's just so much easier than trying to find that corner. Now we're going to use a single piece of transfer tape for this. I find that this works really well, especially on small projects like this, and it doesn't waste a bunch of transfer tape. So we'll go ahead and put it on our largest image first, this cup of cheer. I'm going to kind of bend it in the center and work my way out here. Guys, I forgot I needed a scraper. Go ahead and get a scraper as well, and then you can scrape your image here. So the idea behind transfer tape, if you're not familiar, is that you need to get all of the letters and everything off that white backing sheet and onto the transfer tape. And if I'm being honest, transfer tape can be a big problem for a lot of people. It can be frustrating, it cannot work, it can be really sticky. So just know that you're not alone. But once you've scraped it on there, you can try and peel this back. And hopefully, like this, everything should stick properly. You don't want it on the backing paper anymore, now it's on the transfer tape. Now for the next layers, you may want to reference the image on your computer so you can kind of see exactly where things go. But the hearts go about here. I'll just put that straight down like that and do the same. We'll just scrape those on there, and then you should be able to peel this back and have your hearts stick. And then finally, let's do the mug. Same thing, put it here, bingo, do that, scraping, and then peel it back. Just like that. So now you have all of your image on the sticky transfer tape. And I'm not going to flip this over because I don't want it to stick to the table, but everything is on there in the way it needs to be. So let's go ahead and clean our mug. So like I said, I like using alcohol to clean a mug versus a lid roller. A little alcohol here. We'll just clean this whole thing. Just like this. Then you want to make sure to allow this to dry, because the last thing you want is to actually put this on here and then not have it be dry and then it won't stick. So let me give this a few minutes to dry and I'll be right back. Finally, we just need to add our decal to our mug. So like I said, I really love this little cradle. You can just put your image here. Now you can put an image on both sides of your mug if you want. For this one, I'm just doing a single side. And it's quite a large image. So I'm going to tilt it a little bit so I'm not putting it so near the handle. And you're going to flip it over. And there are a bunch of different ways using things like the hinge method or parchment paper, but this is a fairly simple image, so I'm just going to put it straight on here in the center, like this. Let's see. Just in the center, and I'm going to eyeball it, and then I'm going to wrap it around. Now, you can use a scraper, but I find for this particular step that using your fingers actually just works better. It just works better on the curve of the mug. So just basically press all of that vinyl into the mug itself. Just like this. And you can see why I like this tumbler cradle. This is not going anywhere. It just makes it really handy for doing projects like this without having your mug tipping back and forth. And then you're going to peel back the transfer tape to reveal your final image. So to do this, you don't want to pull it up and out. You really want to peel it back on itself. This gives it the best chance of sticking properly, just like this. All right. I love how this turned out. This is a great gift on its own, but if you want, you can put like a little bit of, a little candy or something in there. Get yourself a little candy cane. It makes a super cute gift. If you are getting something like this as a gift, you may want to give the recipient washing instructions. So permanent vinyl is permanent-ish. It does not handle a dishwasher very well. So they definitely want to hand wash this, mild detergent, and dry it, and don't let the water sit on it because that can peel up the adhesive. But other than that, you've got a really cute gift. And there you have it. We have 3 inexpensive gifts to make and give for the holidays. If you have any questions about any of the 3 gifts that we made today, I would love to hear them in the comments. I'll try and answer. If you found this video helpful, I would love for you to give it a like, subscribe to my channel for more weekly content, and I'll see you next week.